This is a tutorial on the use of the Asset Navigation and General Execution Library plugin, also known as Angel. Now, we are going to start off with a little bit of history. So if you are one of these people with ADD, you're probably going to have to fast forward to get to the part that you're interested in. So we're going to start off with a little history and then how to use the plugin. So, for those that are not aware, Angel is a plugin for bringing custom minis into Talespire. So, the process of bringing custom minis into Talespire started a long time ago with the Custom Mini plugin, also known as a CMP. Now, the Custom Mini plugin basically took an asset that you put onto the board and used some magic to transform it into something else. It worked, but it wasn't all that user-friendly because instead of selecting the asset from a menu, you basically had to know the asset name and type it in. So, after a while, the Custom Mini plugin was replaced by the Extra Asset Registration plugin, also known as EAR. The Extra Asset Registration allowed assets to show up in the regular core Talespire menu, just like any other asset, and spawn them that way. Both the Custom Mini plugin and Extra Asset Registration used assets that were downloaded usually through R2Modman, but it could also be a local pack and typically from Thunderstore. Okay, so Extra Asset Registration worked pretty well, but at another point we had an update and Extra Asset Registration stopped working. So once again a new plugin was created. Actually, two plugins were created, and that would be the Custom Asset Library plugin, CALP, and the Custom Asset Library plugin integrated extension, CALP. I missed the IE on the abbreviation. But anyways, the idea here was that CALP would do the bare minimum and bring custom assets into Talespire, into the menu, and CALP would add a whole bunch of bells and whistles, such as animations, such as sound, such as auras and extensions. But that way, if some update broke CALP, it wouldn't necessarily break CALP. So that was the theory behind that, and that worked for quite a long time. CALP got a bunch of updates adding various features such as animations, auras and effects, blend shapes and sounds. But eventually, Bouncy Rock came out with their own official way of getting assets into Talespire, and during that update, CALP and CALP were broken. So that was the introduction of Tailweaver. So unlike the plugins that we've mentioned up till now, which were all modded plugins, so you needed a modded Talespire to use them, Tailweaver is an actual official way to get custom minis into Talespire that was introduced by Bouncy Rock. So it works with a modded Talespire, but it also works with a completely vanilla Talespire. Now, Tailweaver is good. It gets assets into Talespire officially, so it is much less likely to have problems in the future with updates because, well, it's official. But it does come with a few problems. First of all, Tailweaver only supports single mesh and single texture assets. So if you have a mini that is made up of multiple meshes or multiple textures, you first need to take action to convert that into a single mesh, single texture asset before you can use Tailweaver. Now, the other problem with Tailweaver is because it is using basically a proprietary format introduced by Bouncy Rock, we have very little leeway in what it can and cannot build without severely reverse engineering the Tailweaver project that Bouncy Rock provides. So what that means is you also can't do things like particle systems, you can't do auras and effects, you can't do animations, you can't do sounds. So basically, Tailweaver is a single mesh, single texture, static mini. And for a lot of cases, that's all you need. The big advantage to Tailweaver is you don't need R2Modman to download your assets. There is an in-game browser that you can use to download your assets directly while you're playing the game. And with many of the Thunderstore assets and even other assets being added to mod.io, which is the repository that Tailweaver uses, you have access to tons of custom minis directly from your game. So really, if you just want static assets and they exist or you can make them, Tailweaver is the best way to go because, as I said, it's the least likely to have problems when BR does any kind of game updates. But if you're looking for any of the bells and whistles, such as particle systems, animations, sounds, or auras and effects, we need a new solution because Calp was broken by this this update, and after looking at what it would take to fix Calp, it was determined that it's not worthwhile reviving Calp. The necessary changes to make an asset appear in the core menu was basically made even more difficult than it was before, and therefore Calp was not revived. So, what was the solution? The solution is the latest plugin, which is the Asset Navigation and General Execution Library, also known as Angel. So, you might ask yourself, well, if Calp was so hard to fix, how come Angel was able to accomplish the same thing? And the truth is, it wasn't. Trying to add assets into the core menu is difficult, and we were not able to achieve it, so Angel cheats. What Angel does is it creates its own menu for Angel assets. When I refer to Angel assets, that typically means the Thunderstore assets that we were able to use with the previous plugins, either downloaded via R2Modman from Thunderstore store, or a compatible local pack that you load locally if it contains, for example, copyright material that you can't post onto Thunderstore. So yes, as I said, basically Angel cheats. It doesn't put the assets into the core menu, but it makes a menu similar to the core menu where all Angel assets are. So in your game, you can mix and match Angel assets and core assets, but you do need to do it through two menus. Okay, so first thing we need to do is make sure that R2Modman is installed and that you've set up your Talespire for modding. As was indicated, Tailweaver does not need a modded Talespire, but Angel does. Angel is an unofficial Talespire plugin, so it needs a modded Talespire. If you haven't modded your Talespire, then please follow the tutorials that are available on the unofficial modding Discord to mod your Talespire. I'm not going to go through that process in this tutorial. So I'm going to assume you already have a modded Talespire. If you use R2Modman, which is the recommended mod manager, there are other mod managers, but R2Modman is the one that most people use, so anytime somebody's giving you help, it'll most likely be in terms of R2Modman, so it is really worthwhile using that mod manager. So we can see I've got a bunch of plugins here installed, but I'm going to scroll through and see if I've got Angel. So there we go. We have Angel right here. If I go to the associated website. This is the Thunderstore page for getting the Angel plugin. We can see that it doesn't have, that it has dependency on Beponex and set injection flag plugin. That's common for all plugins, so if you mod your Talespire, you should have that. And the two other dependency plugins that it will load automatically if you go through R2Modman is the file access plugin and the login plugin. So no, beyond those two, which are again used by most plugins now, so those you probably already have. Besides that, there's no dependency. Important note is there is no dependency on asset data plugin, which a lot of plugins do have a dependency on. So you don't need a message distributor or anything like that. You should be good to go. Okay, so now that we've confirmed that we have the asset, that we have the Angel plugin installed, we can now get our asset packs. So again, the process for getting asset packs is similar to what it was in CMP, in EAR, and in Kelpie. You're going to use your mod manager. I'm using R2Modman in this case, and we're going to download them that way. Now, there's two ways to do that. One way is you can go to the online tab in R2Modman. You can type a name, and then you will see the various offerings on Thunderstore that match that name, and you can download them that way. This is not the recommended way to do it. When you're getting asset packs, okay, that's fine. Especially if you know what the name of the asset pack is and you just want to download it, fine, you can use this method. But normally, if you're getting plugins or you're searching for a specific pack, it is better to use the Thunderstore website. So if you go to the Thunderstore website and go to Browse, you're going to get a list of all the available plugins and asset packs. You can still do your searching, but the advantage to going this route is when you click on any of these asset packs, such as that, you'll immediately get the documentation, which in some cases can tell you that you need to do something extra in order to install the pack. Now with asset packs, generally that's not the case. With plugins, for the most part, you don't need to do anything special, but a few plugins do have some extra stuff that you need to do. So using the website, in my opinion, is always better because you'll see any reminders or notifications right away. Okay, I'm just going to go back to R2Modman. In this particular case, I don't really care. We're just demonstrating the process. So I'm going to grab right here, let's say Monster Manual Part 1. I'm going to hit download and download with dependencies, even though it shouldn't have any dependencies. And now if I go through my installed stuff, you can see it is now installed. Okay, so right now we should be ready to run Talespire, and if we have the asset Angel plugin installed, when we start the game up, it will notice any asset packs that we have added since it last did its registration check, and any asset packs that are new, it's going to go through the process of registering. Any asset packs that you already registered previously will remain registered, so it won't try to re-register those. At the moment, if you remove asset packs, Angel does not become aware of that. So what will happen at the moment is if you delete the actual pack in R2Modman, Angel will still see it. It'll still give you an option for those assets, but when you try to click on them, it's going to say that it can't find them. That's coming in an update at some point where Angel will also detect removed packs, but at the moment it does not. One way around that is you can always delete the Angel cache, which basically will force all the packs that you have installed to re-register, and that way it'll remove any deleted packs. I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, so now we're going to fire up Talespire. And depending on how many packs you have downloaded, the start might be slow. Again, especially if you have a lot of packs that weren't previously registered, it's going to take Angel a while to go through them all. Once you've done that once, and then you're just adding a few packs, it should be a little bit faster. So, first thing we saw is there was a warning here telling me that I'm currently using debug or trace mode with my diagnostics, and that slows down the system. The default, I believe, is info, so you probably should not see that message. But if you're ever getting logs for troubleshooting, you've probably switched to debug or trace. And in that case, if you leave that on, it'll give you that warning just to remind you to change it back afterwards, because it will slow down the system. Now, the other thing that we saw is once the main page loaded, I think it's about 5 or 10 seconds after the page loads, it goes and starts to register everything. So we saw down here in the bottom left corner, it was basically writing the names of the packs as it was trying to register them. Once that stops, then you can load your board. Please do not load your board while it's still registering assets, because that will just cause troubles. So make sure that you stay in the main page until you do not see any more asset packs being written to the bottom left of your screen, and then you can load a page. A board. So here we've loaded a board with some junk that I was working on for testing line of sight. Okay, so now if we open up the regular core menu and go to assets, we're not going to find any Angel assets here. Okay, remember, as I said earlier, Angel basically cheated to achieve what it needed to achieve by creating its own little menu for Angel assets. Okay, so here we're not going to see anything. The only thing that you will see if you have ran a session before, if you haven't run a session before, as soon as you try to add a Angel asset, it will ask you to download it, and that is this empty base. Okay, that's basically the asset that Angel uses, and then magically turns it into whatever it was supposed to be. But beyond that, you will not see any Angel assets here. Okay, so obviously the question is, how do we get at the Angel assets? The key combination for doing so, it is done through the keyboard combination, and by default is F10. Just do note that you can change that through the R2Modman configuration. So if F10 doesn't work for you, you want some other key, you can change that. So that also means that if you're hitting F10 and nothing's happening, go check the configuration for Angel plugin to see if that binding was changed to something else. So I'm going to hit F10, and that brings up my Angel menu. So it kind of tries to mimic the core menu, not like visually, but in concept. Okay, so over here on the far left, we have the different categories. Currently there's 4 categories, but in the future there could be more. I anticipate that eventually we'll probably have slabs back and maybe encounters, so we might get some more options here. So the default here is the one selected in orange, and that is regular minis. We have our groups here as usual. We can cycle through those groups using the up and down buttons. Yeah, it's not a scroll bar, it's up and down buttons. And the group that is currently selected is kind of made a little bit bigger to indicate which group is selected. So that's regular minis. Then we have auras. So the mini in a bubble is the aura icon. So those are all auras. And then we have effects. So what are the differences? A mini, when you drop a mini, it's like any other mini. It'll have a base, and it'll show whatever content that mini is, just like core minis. Auras are intended to be attached to minis. So if you have a mini on the board and it is selected, and then you select an aura, instead of it creating a separate mini, it will add the aura to the selected mini. So then your aura will automatically move that with that mini, and they'll be joined. The effects, I believe at this point the effects work the same as auras, but I need to double check. Previously, the previous plugins had a distinction between auras and effects in how they were used. Essentially, they did the same thing, but there were slight differences. As of right now, I think there aren't any differences, so they're still separated into auras and effects due to the fact that the assets in Thunderstorm are separated that way, but at the moment, I believe auras and effects basically do the same thing. And then lastly, we have the camera, which is the filters section. And what filters are basically is assets that get attached to the camera instead of mini. So they're typically used for weather effects, but can be used for things like having the camera covered with blood spatter or goo or whatever you want. Yeah, so that's the selection of what type of asset you want. Then within that, just like normally, you have the groups that you can cycle through. And when you select on any of these groups, it will change the assets over here. If you have more assets than there's a space for, you can use the up and down arrows again to cycle through all these. And as you point to any of these, you are given some information at the bottom of about that asset. So here you can see the name, you can see that the type of asset that it is, what group it belongs to, and then information about what pack it came from. So for example, if you have a nice asset that that you would like to use in another game, or another player would like to use in another game, but they're not sure which asset pack it came from, all you gotta do is put your mouse over and you can see, oh yes, this comes from Gone Splitter's Dragons of Icespire Peak pack, and then you can go find that in Talespire. So in order to spawn any of these things, if it's a creature, we're just going to select on it. Now, yes, right now, when you spawn the creature, before you've placed it, it just appears as a base. It doesn't have the content there. Don't worry, that's normal. Maybe in the future we'll address that, but at the moment it's just a base. but as soon as you drop it, it turns into whatever it is supposed to be. Okay, so that is a mini. It dropped, and it works like any other minis. It's just a base there. You can do hide, reveal, all that kind of stuff. Flying at the moment is not available. That's also being worked on. Okay, so that's that is a mini. Now, if we have this mini selected, and we go to the auras, for example, here we've got some kind of a debuff aura. So if we now selected the aura, we can see that, the aura was added to our selected character. It didn't spawn another base. It's not a separate mini. It is added to the selected character. And in this particular case, this one happens to keep cycling through its little play there. As I'm moving the character, you can see that the aura moves along with it. In order to remove auras, at the moment, you just reselect the same aura. So if I go here and click on that aura, you can see that aura now goes away. At the moment, there is no remove auras option from the radial menu. Again, those are features that will eventually make their way into the Angel plugin, but they're not there yet. So that's auras. Effects, we said, work the same way. We can double check on that. Maybe I'm not reporting this correctly. So let's add that. Yeah. So at the moment, the effects work the same way as auras, and if I click it again, it makes it go away. Okay, so then we have the filters. Filters, same way. I'm just going to turn it on, and it starts to snow. Now, one thing to note, with any of the minis or the auras, because they're attached to a mini, they will be remembered. So if I log out of my session or switch boards, all of that will come with the mini. If you're switching boards, I believe your mini needs to be unique in order for that to work. But all of that will be remembered. With the weather effects, that's currently not the case. In the documentation, they talk about adding a storage base to make it remember that. It's basically a mini that you throw onto the board that it can put information onto. Typically you hide it, and that's how it remembers. But unfortunately at the moment there is a bug with that feature, and it just causes your session to hang. So please don't use the storage base option. I'm working on addressing it. So the best way, you can just turn on your weather effects or any other filter, and don't use the storage object. That means when you load the board, you're going to have to manually turn it on again yourself, but it won't ruin your session. Again, to turn it off, you just reselect the same filter, and it's turned off. So that's pretty well it. F10 to close the menu again. You will note that when you make a selection here, while you're placing it, well, not for filters because filters go automatically, but when you're placing this, the menu becomes disabled so that you don't select another one while you're placing, and that's basically it. So that's how you use the Angel asset plugin. So a couple of housekeeping stuff that you may be interested in. If all you want to do is just go ahead and use it, you can probably quit at this point. But for those who are interested in a little bit more detail, I'm going to provide that now. So two important things. One, if you have registered any asset packs with Kelp, and they're still registered, Angel will not find them. Basically, when Calp registered assets, to remember that which ones it already registered, it would rename the folders, and therefore now Angel doesn't find those renamed folders. So there's a couple things you could do. The days of Calp registering caused a file called unregister.bat to be created in each of the asset pack folders. So if you run that, that will undo that rename, and next time you run Talespire with Angel, it will register those. Or if you don't want to bother with that, the other way is just uninstall that asset pack through R2Modman and then reinstall it. That will also reset it so that Angel will be able to follow it. So just remember that if you've registered your assets through Calp before we had the update, and they're still registered that way, Angel will not be able to find them. So I had a user that was telling me he had a bunch of packs installed, but he wasn't seeing anyone except for the base dragon that comes with Angel, and that was the reason. So remember, you can either unregister them using the Calp unregister.bat file, or just uninstall them and reinstall them. Okay, and then the other thing I mentioned earlier was currently the Angel plugin does not recognize when you remove asset packs using R2Modman. So if I was to go and, for example, remove the weather pack or remove this gnome pack here and come back to the board, it's going to try to load that pack. It's still going to see it in the Angel menus because Angel isn't aware that the assets are gone, but you're going to have a problem loading it because the pack's not there. So the way we can update Angel to basically recognize the fact that packs have been removed is to locate the asset folder. So if you go to your plugins install folder, that's the folder where you basically have a subfolder for each pack that you've installed. You can get there either through R2Modman or if you know the location. So there you will find an entry for Angel. It's the full written name. And within that folder, you will find a cache folder. This is where Angel puts all of its information that it has about registered assets. So you will see that there's a bunch of icons that are Angel icons. Please don't delete those or you're going to have problems. But then there is the portraits for all of the assets that it has registered. And there are also two more files. One is the assets file, and another one is the re-register all.bat. So when you register stuff with Angel, Angel will put the information for that asset pack into the assets folder. The assets folder is just a JSON file. So for those of you who are savvy enough to understand JSON files, which is really not that difficult, you'll understand what all of this is. Well, you'll understand the format, and basically for each asset in a pack, there's an entry here. And it's basically the contents of the info.txt file with a couple of extra things here. So, in addition, when you register the asset, the Angel will also make a copy of the portrait file so that it can quickly access those without having to open up the asset pack each time. So, if you want to kind of reset that, the easiest way is just to double click on the re-register all. What that will do is that's going to delete this asset file and delete all of the portraits, but it will leave the Angel assets. You can do that manually. Just remember, if you're deleting this manually, keep the angel icons, because if you don't, you're going to cause trouble. Yeah, so basically if you run that batch file, it's going to delete all that. Next time Angel comes in, it's going to say, oh, I haven't registered anything, so it's going to go looking through all of your assets and re-register everything. So obviously then, if you have removed some packs, Angel's not going to find them, so they will disappear. So that's how you can reset that. And now, for those of you who, again, are a little savvy with your JSON, because all of those menus, or I guess the menu that Angel uses, is based on this JSON file. It doesn't have an extension of JSON, but the contents are JSON. So you can actually rearrange your assets if you would like to. So for example, let's say I've got Vicious Mockery, and currently Vicious Mockery is in a group called debuff spell auras. So that's the category here, and it's repeated down here. So if I didn't like that, I can actually go in, take this entry, take the whole entry, so from here to here, and move it into a different category. So I could either create a new category, or I could, for example, move it down into the environmental spells aura. And then all I would need to do is just change the group name to match, and bada boom, you've moved it. So now when you pull up your when you restart Talespire and pull up that menu, it's going to appear now in a different place. So this is kind of a way, if you want to kind of override some of the group choices that the content developer made, you can do that.